Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us at the MarketSite studio in Times Square, New York City, we have Myrrh Caplan. She's the Vice President of Sustainability at Skanska USA to discuss how innovations and advancements in technology and construction are impacting both sustainability and safety. Myrrh, it's great to have you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Thank you.
What exactly does sustainability entail when you think about it in the context of construction? Can you shed some light on any particular methodologies or technological innovations that have been integrated into these construction practices?
Yeah, so technology and innovations in construction and certainly sustainability in general, if we touch there first, things like waste reduction, reducing carbon emissions, making more efficient ways of using water and energy, right? So there's a number of layers to that, and certainly it extends beyond into things like biodiversity and habitat protection and all of those things. When we think about the innovation piece of it, largely what we're seeing in movement in the construction industry is a move towards decarbonization. So that means moving away from fuel-based equipment to electrified equipment. That's moving pretty rapidly, although demand is of course exceeding supply right now, and so there's some wait times depending on where you are. Also looking at the deployment of solar to provide energy for recharging of tools, for operating job site offices and those types of things. A lot of that is coming together, and data, right? So the ability to sub-meter the work that you're doing, to provide better data around the usage level, and then thus to give the client a better sense of what their embodied carbon is for their project.
Looking nationwide and in New York City, what are some notable sustainable projects that Skanska has been involved in, and what has the team learned from that?
Well, we've done a number of what folks call net zero, as in net zero energy or net zero carbon. We've done a number of net positive projects, meaning net positive energy, net positive water. Some of those tie back to certification programs like the Living Building Challenge. Sometimes they're just going for a different certification that's got similar goals. What we've learned in that is that the thinking in the past around just carbon or just energy reduction is not enough. There has to be a holistic perspective that's taken in the planning for a project now, and really focusing in on where could we not have a new material? Where could we not be using energy? And making that part of your status quo on your projects. And so as more and more clients are asking for that, really, that's opening the door for the things we've learned on those projects and applying them on others.
So the projects that you've worked on, what has Skanska done to minimize material waste and to optimize your resources? What is your approach to sustainable material sourcing?
Okay. Yeah, the best material is the one that you're not buying new, right? So there is a certain circularity mindset that gets applied there, in that, what could we do that, let's say, means that we're not having to truck things off. So for instance, we might say, let's not take these excavated materials, gravel, sand, whatever those things are, let's not take them off to some other site 50 miles down the road or a different location. Let's figure out how we can stockpile them here, wait until we need them, and then that way we've reduced the number of trucks going back and forth to the site. We've saved emissions because the fuel's not being burned. We've saved money. We've saved schedule, right? There's a lot of instances like that, particularly with lumber. We're seeing opportunities to reuse any new cut waste or even existing lumber. Not that that's a new story, but folks fell in love with barnwood, for instance, right? But now thinking more broadly about the dimensional lumber that's coming off of movie sets. We actually used a good quantity of that in the Georgia market on the Candida Living Building Challenge project in Atlanta. So there's a lot of great instances of that.
What about from the client perspective? How are they emphasizing sustainability? Is there more increased emphasis on the projects that they're looking for you to manage?
Yes, I would say across the board, we have a lot of clients, not just here in New York because of Local Law 97, but in general, clients are saying, I may not be interested in pursuing this big certification goal or having a plaque on the wall, but I want X. And sometimes that means a healthier building, so it's drawing occupants and employees back into the office space, something that's got some biophilic design aspect to it, better air quality, of course, cleaner surfaces, but giving people a view, allowing them free address, which means that they can sit in different areas of the office. So we are definitely seeing an uptick in sustainability requests from clients. It's just coming in all sorts of different flavors.
Yeah, it's interesting when you put it in terms of the return to office movement. I mean, there's such a big difference from being in a cubicle to having all these outdoor spaces, perhaps even like we have at Nasdaq. We have terraces that we can sit out and take calls and have lunch, and it makes such a big difference because just the sunlight alone wakes you up. And I would imagine these are things that weren't thought about in pre-existing structures. So what strategies are being employed to transform, let's say, older structures?
Yeah. There's a big movement around, of course, improving the air quality, like I said. And so part of that may be that you're eliminating products coming in. So brand new furniture, often, if you're not careful, often will have some amount of emissions related to odor, particulate load as you're unpackaging things, right? So there's some thoughtfulness that has to happen around that. A lot of chemicals that are out in the world today, we just are far more aware of them. There's a lot more transparency. And so we're able to actually choose better in terms of the paints, the caulkings, everything that goes along with the new construction. So in a renovation space, it really does come down to that comfort level of, what's left behind when we're done. Not often are they looking at, insulation of the walls, making it unless it's a really large scale renovation. But they may look at adding film to the windows to improve the, thermal dynamic of the space.
What about building resiliency? How is the sustainability and the advancements that we're seeing in technologies allowing buildings to better withstand natural disasters?
Yeah, there's a lot of resilience work happening and a lot of things that we're doing even in our own developments where we're doing analysis to ensure that we're creating the most resilient buildings we can. But even on the construction side, it comes down to durability, the resilience of the actual materials themselves. And I would say a good example of that, we do a lot of waterfront work here in the New York area, but in other locations as well. Should we be looking at the opportunities to raise up an area above, what would typically be a flood space, or using materials that don't corrode? When you're on a waterfront in particular, or you're in a location that gets a lot of dust storms, wind storms, materials can break down very quickly, and particularly with seawater intrusion, if you do like steel doors, let's say, because those are very secure, you want to have great products, and those are typically very great products for a public space, let's say. But they corrode quite rapidly in the seawater air, and so, coming up with those strategies and making sure that we are incorporating what we can to create a more resilient building, and then also from a systems perspective, identifying the best path to having, in the data center world, we call it PUE, but the greatest level of redundancy and assurance that the building's going to have good uptime.
And wrapping up here, what's your projection for the longer term trajectory of sustainability in construction?
I think we've definitely seen during COVID, and even as an outcome that will continue, I think, is every building is and should be a healthy building. So the healthy building movement, I only see that continuing and growing quickly. The other thing being resilience, and so with the increase in intensity of natural storms, drought, flood, heat resilience in particular is a great concern, particularly in low-income neighborhoods. I think we're going to see even more of a shift towards more resilient construction in the future.
All right, Myrrh, we appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. And thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.